I'm also to a wonderful gentleman called Alex that runs Andy's Man's Club, who I was honoured enough to present an award to. They do incredible work up in the north, but they're kind of heading down south, and you know what they've set up is amazing. So you can tune into that when we do that. And then we've got some other things going on kind of in November, but it all kind of kick starts for us tomorrow with our breakfast at MUFG. So as I said, International Men's Day on the 19th of November. Depends which way that you want to kind of play it, but I think it's a golden opportunity to get rid of some stereotypes, to engage men in conversations around what affects them, to engage them around kind of gender balance as well, to talk about mental health, to talk about some of the things that we wouldn't expect men to talk about, and you know, maybe talking about things around, you know, job sharing, shared childcare, those that are kind of, you know, that took time out to look after their children. So it's just a good opportunity to kind of get men to talk. But invariably, kind of International Men's Day is very much focused on kind of men and men's mental health. But I think there's stuff that we could be doing to engage our men. As I said to you, lots of previous different meetings, you know, I think the journey to gender parity involves both sides. And I think that those stereotypes around kind of toxic masculinity, you know, and some of the things that we see need breaking down. And we need to create safe spaces for men to be able to talk as well. So I'm going to hand you over to Daniele, who's going to talk about the why, but also give you some ideas around things that you can do. I mean, put this in the context of we have a multitude of channels at our fingertips, whether it's LinkedIn Live, whether it's your internet, whether it's panels. And just before I hand over to Daniele, we did a great event at Barclays a couple of years back where we had, Daniele opened it, we had 4 gents on the panel. You know, one was talking about the fact that he'd been separated from his wife. His wife's automatically got custody of their children, with these children, and he was kind of talking about that. We had one gentleman, very, very senior at HSBC, was talking about the fact that he went, you know, through his own kind of things that went on in his life. He'd come out of rehab, you know, was supported in the organisation. He talked about his mental health. So there were some real incredible stories there, like, and it really enabled us to see a different side to where the challenges lie for some of the men in our organisations. So I'm going to be quiet now, and I'm going to hand over to Daniele. So what we'll do, we'll listen from Daniele. You have an opportunity to ask questions in the chat group. Please do ask questions. You've got the expert here. And then we'll hand over to Glyn and Arthur, and they can tell us a little bit about what they've set up at BAE. So Daniele, I'm going to go off camera, and I'm going to over to you.
Vanessa, how long have I got?
You've got about 15 minutes.
Okay, perfect. Hello, everyone. I'm Daniele Fiandaca. I know, recognise some people here. Lovely to see those and lovely to see new people. I am co-founder of Token Man Consulting, which is a relatively new business, but I've actually been running Token Man for 9 years. Token Man was set up specifically to engage men with inclusion and diversity. I've just focused now on running a business that is doing that within organisations, so engaging men. I've actually been marking, and I use that terminology on purpose. I celebrate International Women's Day, but I always mark International Men's Day. They are doing 2 different things. I've been marking International Men's Day now for 5 years. We've been running masculinity in the workplace for the last 5 years. I think it's one of the few events in the UK that is an inclusion diversity event that is majority men. It is my favourite event of the year. I'm obviously quite biased, and I know some people on this call have been to it. It gets amazing feedback. Last year it got 9.3 out of 10. My biggest frustration is we just need to get more people to it because it is so powerful, but we just still struggle to get people to it. I think it's very hard to talk about International Men's Day without talking about the elephant in the room. Can anyone tell me, or either in chat, what do you think the elephant in the room is when I talk about International Men's Day? What do you think I hear the most when International Men's Day comes up? Anyone? Isn't that day every day? Thank you, Bianca. Yes, it is the thing I hear the most. I'm going to send you a link that I've written around it. Why? Well, I'm going to ask a question. Why? 2 questions actually. Why do you think that statement I mean, I believe that statement is really reductive and actually not very helpful. I'm going to say it. But why do you think I think that? Can anyone tell me why that statement is quite reductive as a statement? I'm going to see if I get anyone. Okay. Anyone? Yeah, Sarah ignores the very real issues that IMD addresses 100%. Yeah, anything else coming through? Thank you, Sarah. Anything else coming through? Why is that? I mean, I just think that statement's, I'll be honest, I think that statement's wrong. I'm going to say it. I don't say many things about things are wrong. I think that statement is wrong. And there's a very real reason that statement is wrong. And it's a word begin with I. And it ends with sectionality. So intersectionality. I find that statement is so reductive and actually just wrong. I mean, when it comes down to when we look at the statement men have more privilege over women, it's such a reductive statement simply because men come in all different shapes and sizes, all different diversity backgrounds. And so a gay man and the challenges he faces, he's still a man with disabilities and the challenge they face, he is still a man. A father, and I think Vanessa talked about some of the challenges that fathers can face, they're still men. So I think the first thing is intersectionality. And when we talk about privilege, I would argue, I don't think this is controversial, but if we look at let's be really clear, I am the definition of privilege. I understand that International Men's Day isn't necessarily for someone like me, but for someone like me, very openly, I've suffered with real mental health issues over the last 2 years. So understanding that, in the same way that World Mental Health Day yesterday was important for me to talk about therapy and how important therapy's been, it is important for us to actually look at what men are doing. I think, Sarah, can you do you mind coming off and just talk about some of those real issues? I'd love to hear another voice.
Hello. Yeah, of course. Sarah. Yeah, so I'm part of the EY Women's Network, and for International Men's Day, we are marking it properly for the first time this year, because although we're the Women's Network, we are like the gender network. We've chosen to mark it specifically bringing out mental health. And just trying our very, very hardest to pull as many men into the conversation as we possibly can, but also women. Like, we always talk about International Women's Day, and like most of our events are women focused, and we try our very hardest to bring men into those conversations. So we're going to be doing the flip of that this time as well. But it's the first time we've done it, so I'm really, really open to learning and new ideas.
Amazing, thank you, Sarah. I think aligned to that comment around intersectionality, I'd also say, I mean, I've been in this space now for 9 years. I've been running an inclusion diversity consultancy for over 5 years, and the one thing we use the whole time is inclusion is for everyone. That statement, just saying that statement actually says inclusion isn't for everyone, it's not for men. And that's extremely problematic, because no minority in history has ever created change without the support of the majority. And let's be clear, women aren't in the minority in the workplace, but unfortunately, if we look at senior leadership in too many industries, they still are. So we do have to engage men. We got criticised for the work that we're doing. It's very hard. We got criticised by a man who said, because we do use International Men's Day as a way to engage men with the ultimate goal of creating gender equity in the workplace. Token Man was set out to create more equitable workplaces. So fundamentally, everything I do, I'm a feminist. I do actually support women, but part of that supporting women is also understanding how we need to support men. And I think that's really, really important to say that. Any other reasons why anyone thinks it's important for us to mark International Men's Day? I'd love to hear it in chat. Any other reasons? Okay, I'm just going to put, I don't want to spend, I only got 15 minutes and I don't want to spend my time. I want you to talk, and actually it's a brainstorm. So I want to get you to think about. So I've just popped something, I've popped a link that I've done in in LinkedIn, which hopefully gives the tools. It's taken me 4 years to write it, but hopefully it has the arguments. And let's be really clear. I understand where that comment comes from. I understand why people fear that marking International Men's Day actually means International Women's Day. But hopefully, hi, come in. Yes, Yvonne, brilliant.
Yeah, hi. Sorry, I was commuting, so that's why I'm off camera.
No worries.
I think it's interesting. You've given me some food for thought around the intersectionality point of why celebrate it. I hadn't thought about that, but I think it's important so therefore I think it's important to mark International Men's Day, because it's an opportunity for women, or those who identify as female, to understand, to get a greater insight into that intersectionality and those challenges. Yep. And reflect on that.
Yep, very good. Thank you so much, Yvonne, for coming in. Esther Perel, I haven't got the quote on me now, but Esther Perel did talk about, it's the quote I'll use the most in the next couple of years. But she talked about how feminism has given women a real identity and an understanding of where they want to be. And she talks about this is an opportunity for men to really look at masculinity in the same way. But she worries that men and women, and she does say and women, don't have the tools in order for them to do that. And I do see it a lot in the workplace. I do see a lot of men, and I'm really looking forward to hearing from Glyn and Arthur, but I do see a lot of men not being given the support or the empathy for them to go on the journeys they need to go on. I'm going to quickly pop up a deck. I'm just going to give you, and again, I just want to lay some ground for you brainstorming in terms of what you need to do. We've already heard from Sarah that you are doing mental health. My recommendation, actually, if we look at where men sit at the moment, my recommendation with businesses is, if you're doing something for the first thing, I would recommend you go down the mental health route. And that's simply because, first and foremost, we do need to show men that we do care, that we are supporting them, and in marking it, we're actually recognizing some of the challenges they're having. And we do have a mental health crisis here in the UK. My old company, Utopia, do look it up. They've just put a mental health report out yesterday, and the results of that report are shocking, absolutely shocking. I also can't tell you how many clients I'm speaking to who are really worried about the men in their organizations. I've had one client specifically who's had 3 attempted suicides. 3 different men have attempted suicide in the last 6 months. There are only 200 people in that company. So if you just look at the level of that happening, it is a significant issue that we have. And that's why, and listen, I've been triggered badly in the last 2 years when someone has said to me, International Men's Day shouldn't be marked. Men's issues aren't improbable, because I have lost people to suicide. So it's a comment that actually can be very, very upsetting for people depending on where they've come from. I'm not going to say too much, because I've shared that link. I'm just going to share with you the themes. If you could, can I make me, can I share? No. Can I be co-host, please? Because I can quickly share a doc, just one slide. Vanessa, are you a host?
Yep, just give me a second.
I'm just doing it.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks, Leona. Brilliant. Thank you. So I'm just going to show you one slide. So, and I would recommend you go to the International Men's Day UK site. There is, I understand when people go to the US site, I think the US site sometimes can be problematic, certainly when I've looked at it, but I do think the UK site makes a lot of sense. So I think if you look at International Men's Day at a UK level, I think the work they're doing is really, really interesting. Actually, even just, I was on it yesterday, and just looking at some of the resources they suggest for men are super, super useful. So these are the themes per the UK site. So on the UK site, they will say 3 different themes. And again, why wouldn't we want to do these things, which is making a positive difference to the well-being of lives of men and boys, raising awareness and/or funds for charities supporting men and boys' well-being, and promoting a positive conversation about men, manhood and masculinity. So that's the themes of the UK site. The alternative themes that I will be working with clients with, believe it or not, November is my busiest month. But the alternative things I know I'm working with clients with is mental health. As I said, if it's the first time you're marketing something, I would recommend you do mental health first and foremost. The second one is how to be a better ally to inclusion and diversity. There is no doubt that actually getting more involved, leaning into inclusion and diversity, and I can't wait to actually share the results of our survey that we've done with We Are the City tomorrow to talk about the value that men have found from leaning in. 97% of our respondents said that they are either a better leader or a better human being as a result of leaning into I&D. I mean, that's an incredible stat. And the third one that we're seeing more and more of is vulnerability. So finding ways for people to be vulnerable. And just to tie that in to, if I look at what the work that we do around inclusion and diversity, we are the only way, my view is, from my experience, the only way you're going to be successful with engaging men is finding ways to get them to feel it, to feel what other people are feeling. One of the challenges that we find is when men actually find it hard to feel full stop because of the damage the patriarchy has done on them. We have to actually even start first by getting them to reconnect with their feelings. This is if you haven't read this book by Bell Hooks, it's a really hard read, but it's a brilliant read. I wish I'd read it earlier, but Bell Hooks talks about it a lot, about how the patriarchy has led to a world where actually men have become disconnected with their feelings. So that's me. I thought I'd just give you a base. You've got some themes and ideas there, and I'll hand over to Arthur and Glyn, who I'm really looking forward to hearing from.
Thank you, Daniele. Just before we hand over, Danielle is with us for the next few minutes, so I don't know if you're going to stay the whole time, but so ladies, please do ask some questions. I think that's given us some really good food for thought. And again, think about the technology that you can use to engage with people. Every man in your organisation has got a story, and I think encouraging them to share some of that story for the greater good is really important. But totally agree with Daniele. The way to go is mental health. We did have one member of Gender Networks a few years back that embraced International Men's Day. I think it's about 5 years ago, and it was met with quite a rebuke. Excuse my phone. It was met by quite a rebuke within their organisation. So I think we've moved on from those times. So yeah, hopefully we've given you some ideas. So I'm going to hand you over to the wonderful Arthur and Glyn, and to tell you a little bit more about what they've done within BAE.
Thanks, Vanessa. Right, so I'm Glyn. I'm saying Arthur's on the call with us as well. So I'll start a bit then, Arthur, if you want to join in whenever. But I think it was basically through start of lockdown. I'd been suffering from mental health issues for quite a number of years, and me and Arthur had become good friends within the company, and we'd lived quite a distance away. And so I phoned him one of the days, and well, we were chatting. I said we could do like a man cave within the company, somewhere where men can talk about issues and one thing or another. So Arthur and I, we started having chats with different people, and we went right to near enough to the top, to a guy called Brian McBeef, who's our director of safety and health and the environment, and it was well received. So it started from there. Then I think after we had some other meetings, didn't we, where they said, "Oh, we couldn't call it a man cave." So they first off said mates, and I said, "Oh, that'd be brilliant," because Arthur and I always call each other mate. Then somebody informed us it's the name of a condom firm, so that won't go very well. So they came up with Gents, because we're part of the Gen Network for Gender Equity, and the T is talking socially. And so it was actually International Men's Day of last year, where we'd helped set it up on the day, and we launched Gents from there. So I'll let Arthur speak a bit as well. If you want, Arthur, do you want to mention a bit?
Thanks. Hi, afternoon all. My name's Arthur Benson. I've worked with BAE Systems and its core company, British Aerospace, since back in 1990. So I have witnessed quite a few changes for the company and what it does around men's health, well, everybody's health, mental health and that kind of thing. Just to add a bit more of a background, I sat in on a session given by one of our management team on his own mental health journey and his issues, and it struck a bit of chord with myself. And then in the forerunner to lockdown, I knew Glyn was going through some personal issues as well. And we just took the opportunity to strike up conversations inside and outside of work. And as Glyn said, we live at opposite sides of the country, so to get together is not always the easiest thing. But just to spend 10 minutes on a call. And Glyn rightly said, you know, this could travel. So we spoke to a couple of management team and touted the idea around and put a bit of an outline of what we wanted to do. We're not there to diagnose anybody. We're not there to, you know, to prescribe medication for anybody. We're there to signpost, but moreover, we're there to share. And it's Gents has come on now in the nearly 12 months we've been running it. We have a steady group of people that call in. Nobody's ever called out to speak. It's a safe space. We've been backed by the company at every step of the way, which is fantastic. We don't just deal with mental health issues. We look at any kind of issue. It's the analogy that I used is, as a man, when we're born as engineers. So we buy a new bit of kit, and my wife will testify. I buy new DVD, you know, new computer. I never read the instruction book because you never need to. You know how everything works, and you can make it work from scratch. And that's what we do with life. So, but unfortunately, we're not all that clever. So we do need that space. We share, we laugh together, we cry together, you know, and we do try and help each other.
There, Arthur, when you say cry together, I literally, and I don't mind saying this, Arthur, who I work with as well, I've been a victim of domestic abuse. So January, separated from my wife. It's not been the world's best. And a lot of the posters are basically a lot of women being attacked by men, but where do you ever see a man being attacked by a woman? And so I lived by myself a bit, and I was on the call to Arthur and another good friend of ours, Fiona, who works for the company. And Fiona, I can't remember what she said. I think she just says, "How are you getting on?" And that's it. I just cried in front of Arthur and Fiona because I felt safe that I could. Didn't feel embarrassed. I just felt lower than low. I felt like I knew for once I didn't want to take my own life, but I could understand why people could easily do so. And we've had it on the call, haven't we, Arthur, where we spoke about crying in front of other men, because we've got one guy on there whose daughter sadly died at age 3 of cancer. And he was saying it took him a long time to be able to cry. Then the amount of men then who spoke up saying, yeah, I had this problem and I cried. I had that problem and I cried. And it's brilliant that, yeah, it's like the bathtub effect as well, isn't it, Arthur? When we start the meeting, we're all laughing and joking. Then we might have a chat about a few things. Then we're trying, and turn it around a bit to finish on a positive note. But yeah, literally people have said that they can't wait for the day because it's just every third Wednesday of each month. But also we are sorting out the International Men's Day for this year, and I said to Arthur the other week, I says, what with Bill Turnbull, then of the rugby player,
Kenny Logan. Kenny Logan
with prostate cancer. I said, I think we should do about prostate cancer for getting tested. And I said, I got tested. I've told Arthur he's got to go and get tested because he's not been tested yet. So these are all things we like to talk about in the gents session. And a good friend and colleague of ours, he's unfortunately been through prostate cancer, and he's willing to come and speak on the day and tell people about it. And our aim is to, from International Men's Day, to set it out to say, right, go and get tested, and to get, even if somebody comes back and puts the hand up saying, yeah, I've been tested, or they want to put their name to it. So we did about mental health last year, but we definitely says that prostate cancer is, and I think they call it basically the silent killer, because you just don't know it's there until it's too late. So, but yeah, I know someone saying about November. Yeah, and this is another thing. Spoke to our comms team, and all of November, I think it's going to be not all men's month, but it's going to be themed that way. So we've got backing off of comms and one thing and another. So do you want to add a bit any more, Arthur? Sorry for taking.
Yeah, I'll just give you a bit of a run through of gents. So what we do, gent session, as Glyn said, it runs the third Wednesday of every month between 12 and 1. So we don't interfere with work time particularly. And what we do, the sessions are open sessions normally. We allow people to dial in. There's no forcing anybody to go on video. Myself and Glyn usually do, because, as we've said many times, we're the two attractive ones on the call, aren't we, Glyn?
I wish.
So what we do, it's, as I say, it can be anybody's session. We've said to everybody that's on the call, anybody that wants to come on the call, if you want to take that hour, please do. You know, it's not for me and Glyn, it's for everybody. We've had a couple of sessions where we've had guest speakers, and guest speakers, we're homing on people around the site that maybe do something a little bit different in the spare time, away from the world of engineering, as we do. We've had a guy that's a lifeboatman at Holyhead, so he's told us his story. One of my direct colleagues, he's a world champion bodybuilder, been doing it for the best part of 40 years now. So, you know, we open it to things like that, but the conversations can run at wild tangents. We had a session, one gentleman came on, told us about his daughter. It was the first time he'd ever called in, told us about his daughter and her fight with leukemia, and the fact that just prior to Christmas, she'd been given the all clear. And he messaged me, I've known this chap for a few years, he messaged me, he says, okay, if I continue? I said, yeah, the floor's all yours. And he told everybody then about how he was on his way to work and he attempted to commit suicide. And he went then through the positives, you know, he got the help, the company helped him, he had specialist help, and he's now become a mental health first aider. So, you know, it's not doom and gloom, and it shouldn't be. We celebrate the good as well, you know, and I think we've got quite a robust, hearty band now, haven't we, Glyn? That
Yeah.
They like to be together. As Glyn said, it's something that they've said they look forward to. And thanks, Vanessa. I did quote actually your message. It's the first time I've ever been called inspirational, by the way. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and from all this as well, I know we've got some women's networks. We in BAE Systems got inspiring women and one thing and another, but and we've got like mental health groups and one thing and another. And then a good friend of Vanessa's as well, Mivy James, who in fact Mivy put us onto Vanessa. She mentioned some years ago she would try and set up a women's network and had a lot of negative things about it. So for all what's come out of gents, I thought, no, it's not right. I think women need this as well. So I sent it off again to the main directors of the company and one thing another, and D&I managers, and says it's not just those men who suffer, it's women as well who need to talk about things. Because some people, I mean, I am more open now. I will tell women about my mental health, and a lot of people in my workplace know about it anyway. But there's some women who can't talk to men, and some men can't talk to women. So that's our next step now. We've been given the go-ahead to start building a women's group. I mean, one at courses we had as well, we had LGBTQ plus networking with them to say, look, we all have, we don't care, any men, should have been gay men, whatever, because these gay men might have problems with mental health. And a good friend of mine, he came out when he was 18, that back in the 80s when AIDS were around and stuff like that. And they were telling me the other day how hard it was for him, trying to tell his parents one thing or another. So, it's been really good. And from this, we've been nominated now 2 times for Chairman's Awards this year. I mean, if we don't get it, we don't get it. But it's nice that we've had 2 different sectors, air sector and maritime, nominate us for a Chairman's Award, which is quite a good award-winning company because there's 80,000 people as well. So, but anyway, back to you, Alf, if you want to add anything else.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we, as you rightly pointed out, we link with LGBTQ+ as allies. We're also champions for mindset. And we do work with Andy's Man Club through Alex McClintock up in Glasgow. So we're supporting that. Myself and Glyn have been asked to do some road shows in support of various things, mindset and Andy's Man Club around BAE Systems in the UK. We've had quite a lot of interest from other sectors that maybe we've missed out on from a comms perspective. So the plan is to get this globally for BAE. You know, everybody's telling us it's the right thing to do. The feedback that we get from people that are on the calls are all positive. As Glyn said, we've been nominated for 2 Chairman's Awards this year, which is fantastic to be nominated. But the thing is, it's not about that recognition. That's not why we do this.
Yeah.
This is personal to both me and Glyn. We've put a lot of time and effort into it. And we've done that because we believe in it. And as we always say, if we can't look after each other, we've got nothing. So, you know, it's it does mean a lot to us.
I mean,
Sorry, yeah, go on.
And our next session, we've got our friend who spoke about Fiona, who does menopause group. She's coming in to talk to us men about menopause, and we said we need educating more about menopause. So it's not all about, you know what I mean, men. It's like accepting what women go through and a better understanding. So yeah, we do have some sessions where it's just and men get round, but like I said, we try and make it that we are inclusive, if you know what I'm saying, and to understand what problems women can have as well.
Well, I think you're both absolutely incredible, and my hope is by bringing you and sharing your story, that the people on the call, or you know, gender members that are watching this on playback, think about how they can do this in your organisation. I mean, you guys have already shared with me that story about the guy that was going to take his own life, and you know, he's now got a safe space to come and talk, and I think that is super important. So I'd like to thank both of you. You get our Chairman's Award, you know, for what you've done, and BAE are absolutely lucky to have you, and you know, so we continue to support you in the best way we can. Daniele, I just want to quickly ask you, in the chat group, you mentioned something called a feelings wheel. That might be of interest to the 2 guys at BAE, but it also may be useful for people on the call. Can you just tell us what you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, my wife works within the mental health team at Utopia. So she'll say to me, "How are you?" And I'll say, "I'm okay." The last 6 years has been quite hard for me, and yet my answer will still be, "I'm okay." And she keeps on saying, "No, how are you really?" And I struggled really to articulate how I may be feeling. So she for a while she's been saying to me, "I need to get the feelings wheel out to you." And then I went to Josh Connolly. Josh Connolly is a brilliant resilience coach, and he does I can't recommend it highly enough, but it's based in London. He does something called Uncommon Man London, and he gets 30 men once a month together. And the first thing he does is as the men come in, we sit down and he puts the feelings wheel up. And so the feelings wheel, I don't know whether I can quickly get it up. I will share it. I just opened it, so just so everyone can see it. The feelings wheel is designed really to allow people to get a better to start articulate how they're feeling. So he just says, can you look at the feelings wheel and choose the word that best describes how you're feeling at the moment? So I'm just opening it here now. But what you can see is, you can obviously see in the middle, you've got, you know, what I'd call like big words, you know, and actually the feelings was about trying to get what's behind being, you know, if you're feeling bad, what's actually behind that. So for example, it might be, I might look at this, you know, I am feeling bad, but I tell you why, it's just because I'm totally overwhelmed. So all of a sudden it starts to give you the vocabulary. And I'm started to use it myself now. So when I run something called the Token Man Brain Trust, which is about 20 C-suite leaders, and I will just start the session now by saying, how are you feeling? Pick your word. And then I'll just put people in small groups. And then for 5 minutes each, I'll get them to I'll get them to talk about why they're feeling like that. So it's very similar to what Arthur and Glyn are doing, in that sometimes we just need to be able to talk to people and have people listening. But I also think it's within the instructions, we're really clear in that we tell people, if you're listening, please actively listen. So show that you are listening, show you're connected, but please don't try and fix. So for us, it's also teaching them what empathy is. Empathy is not trying to fix other people's problems. I love that analogy. People talk about engineers. We want instructions in life, and it is so true, because we have become disconnected. So we just use it a lot more now in terms of the feelings wheel, just to get people to start getting used to articulating their feeling, and it's just a way of getting people to speak.
Daniele, have you heard about one with the farmers where they use I read an article about they use a percentage, because they had a similar problem. They say, "Oh, how are you today?" "Oh, about 75%," or about, "Oh, I'm 20% today." So there's straight away there's a gauge of if the percentage has gone up or down, and we just thought, "Well, that's a quick."
Yeah.
Most of us do say, "Yeah, I'm okay," and I've stopped saying that now. I've started saying, "No, do you know something? I don't feel that good today. I feel really fed up and down." If you know what I mean. I said, "Don't know why, but I do." And you know what I mean, and I think we need to be more honest but to people. I mean, then I think that problem is, though, I think then people regret asking you. Then that's the main. I just want to build on that farm, because I think it's really for a lot of the work that we have to do is we have to work out the terminology at work. So I interviewed on International Men's Day 2 years ago. I interviewed James, who set up not Self-Space, a sanctuary. So he sets up a mental health support system, and he talks about how he really struggled to connect with his friends, and so he started it. Whenever he talked about mental health, they switched off and they weren't interested. So all he started to do is, when his mental health was bad, he started talking about feeling a bit dud. So actually he used it like a battery, the battery's running out. And what happened was he found that his friends started copying that terminology. So he then knew that as permission for him to go in and give them support and understand why they're feeling how they're feeling. So I think trying to find different ways into that people can understand is really important.
Sorry, I was just going to say, can I just add to that, Daniele? It's really interesting. I use the analogy, we listen, but we don't always hear what people are saying. And I think that ties in with that empathy thing. And also, if you get a conversation struck up and somebody's open and honest, what we found with gents is it tends to draw other people in to conversation, and they feel, well, somebody else feels that safe and secure. And it starts to build their own confidence up, so they can tell their story as well.
Yeah,
it's worked a treat for us.
So just something to leave you with. I'm just mindful of time. I think there's merit in everything that's kind of been suggested on this call. I just want to put something else into your mindset. We focused a lot this year on gender networks, on intersectionality of women, and it's come up in some of the suggestions the gents have made. But the challenges faced by intersectional men. So it could be, if you're thinking of putting a panel together or anything like that, please consider individuals on that panel, because obviously mental health is slightly different from, not slightly different, it's the same thing, but it's viewed in different ways from within different cultures. So there's additional challenges that are there as well. Obviously, we've mentioned the LGBTQ community. So we've got that kind of aspect of it, so there are so many things that you could do, but just make sure that we are being as inclusive as we can with that conversation, and not just thinking, okay, it's the middle class white man that is having kind of mental health issues. And just so that those events, or whatever you're doing, whether it's a webinar series, whether it's a series of LinkedIn Lives, whether it's articles on your intranet, or wherever else you're addressing it, that you just have that intersectional lens that goes across it and makes you inclusive for all. So obviously connect with these guys on LinkedIn. I told you Daniele is part of our family, and Glyn and Arthur now too. I'm sure that if you was doing anything online, Glyn and Arthur would be happy to come and pitch up, and probably Daniele, but obviously if you want him to come into organisations, he's got to pay the bills, so factor that in as well. But I hope you found this session useful. I hope it's given you some food for thought. As I say, keep your eye. We do a whole International Men's Day section on We Are the City with loads of different resources and books and stuff like that. There's 2 going on at the moment, one for Black History Month and one for Menopause Month, but that will shortly change to International Men's Day. So feel free to kind of use that and direct that, and also to share some of our events if you don't have resources to do your own. But let's keep the conversation going. So Daniele, thank you so much for joining us. I know we're going to be diving deeper into some of that research, which we'll also share the summary report with Gender Networks members, but we'll be doing that. So I hope to see some of you at the breakfast in the morning. You can still probably book in if you talk to Leona. And obviously Glyn and Arthur, we've got our article coming out on you, which is going to be published next week. But please, if you want to reach out to Glyn and Arthur, we would be more than happy to connect you. But it just leaves me to thank you all for showing up, you know, for coming on this journey with us so that everyone has a voice. It is appreciated. Thank you to everyone.
Thanks very much for having us.
You take care. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.